I'm excited to talk with you again because I feel like we have so much in common with the things that we do and the work that we do with my yoga and mindfulness classes and groups, and even the work that we do with our clients with autism and other related challenges. And I'm excited to hear more about what you do in your journey to get there.
Yeah, even looking at your website, we talk a lot about growth mindset, and a lot of what we do with our clients is process over product, and getting out of that results driven mindset is so hard for a lot of us and a lot of families. So, Sheila, tell us maybe a little bit about your background and how you got started in creating this and kind of what needs you saw and what led to that.
Well, first of all, I want to say thank you for having me on your podcast. I really appreciate it. And I'm so grateful that we share similar visions and a lot of the things we do are in alignment. So thank you for that. I appreciate that. My journey, I came to a realization in the last few months that it's not one story that brought me here. It's a compilation of my life journey where you look for a purpose, you look for your purpose, you look for what it is that you are meant to be doing. Usually growing up, you're kind of guided or told what direction you should take and what is the best fit for you before you even discover what it is that you want to do. So my journey to TASGEM, Therapeutic Arts, Science, and Growth Mindset, is a compilation of experiences, education, and trial and error, and basically the search for the truth and clarity. And what it is also the need. What is the need? What is the need for this time? What do people need? And one of the things recently that I went through several traumatic where I was like, okay, well, I need to figure out how to manage all of this. And through the research and experimentation on myself and on my children, I was like, oh my gosh, this stuff really works. We have tools available at our fingertips that can allow us to release stress and anxiety and to help us manage grief and to help us be in the present moment. But why have I not learned that growing up? Why isn't this more prominent? And so this is the more professional, technical version of the story where I was looking to teach the types of tools that I wish that we learned growing up to help us manage stress and anxiety.
So, the personal story is you were stuck and looking for resources and tools to use. You found some that were helpful, and you were like, well, if I needed them, other people must need these tools as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And my story is different journeys and pathways that led up to this one story. And I noticed that for every audience that I speak to, the story is very specific. For example, I used to work 80-hour week. I was in technology, male industry, and I did not have a work-life balance at all. I couldn't figure it out. I couldn't figure out. I was stressed out and I worked all the time. And so when I speak to people that have that type of lifestyle, it resonates with them that these types of tools work for them versus I am a single mom of 4 kids and I'm stressed out all the time. So what do I need to do to help me release stress and anxiety? So it's a compilation of stories, but you're exactly right. I want to share the types of tools that I wish that we had as children, learning as children, to cope as adults.
Yeah, I feel that so much. Everything I learn, just all of the tools and the coping strategies and different things that we can do, I feel that so much of why didn't we learn them? And it just wasn't in that time period. It's so much more talked about now. And it wasn't, I don't think our parents had the tools, and it just wasn't as mainstream, I guess. And I do feel like that of when I've taught the yoga mindfulness classes at the school, the elementary school, just these kids and what they're experiencing now, they need it so much more than we needed it, right? Just,
Absolutely.
yeah, it's,
Absolutely.
And it's
And
either you persevered through it, right? You don't talk about it, you just get over
yeah,
it, and then you have no tools, and then a lot of people go to substance abuse or live in an angry, spiteful.
coping mechanisms, right?
Yes,
hmm
yeah.
And Well, another thing is looking back, and this is becoming a little more normalized, and I'm so grateful for that as well. We don't talk much about mental health in general. And in the past, it was very taboo, and we just didn't have as many tools to talk about our emotions or mental stress. We talk about physical stress and we talk about other things, whenever the burdens and stresses that we carry in our hearts and our minds that affect our daily lives, and the fact that they accumulate, and if we keep holding it in, that it turns into something a lot bigger later on if we don't deal with it at the time. So I'm actually really grateful that now more and more institutions, schools, families are open to having this discussion. It starts with, talking about it. What can I do to help feel better?
Such a
Yes.
stigma around it. We just had Susie Bartell on the podcast, and her son committed suicide, and she struggled for a long time, but then brought a lot of resources and groups to Loudoun County about talking about mental health and the stigma and normalizing it. And we all have some kind of trauma, but it's all our trauma. And how do we process that and get through it? So I do love that it's being talked about more. And I think we all could benefit from it, not just people who have major incidents, but all of us every day, right?
Correct.
Definitely.
Correct. Another reason why I do this is because I'm like, oh my God, I have to practice what I preach. I
Yes.
forget. We get so stuck in the routines and hurry up and do this, and I have to finish this, that me as an advocate of taking care of your mental, emotional health, and me who wants to normalize the conversation also has to walk the walk. I can't forget to do these things myself. And so sometimes I joke with friends, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is a reminder that I need to do these things myself because it accumulates.
Yes. Yeah. I think we all need to do it as a proactive approach versus reactive, where we're doing it after we're completely shut down or we had whatever it is that had a crisis that
Yeah.
happens, but doing it as proactive strategies to hopefully prevent that, or to at least give you, we're going to have those emotions, we're going to have the anxiety come up, we're going to have the feelings come up, but give you the tools to process it and go through it when it happens, because it's going to happen and we can't just make it go away. But the proactive, I think, is definitely really powerful.
And you're working 80 hours a week, 4 kids, just burnt. I mean, that sounds just like
So
burnout
those are
waiting to happen,
two
right?
two different stories. It was 80-hour weeks, divorce, single mom. Like it just piled up. It was just piling up, and not to mention societal pressures, community pressures, and then that inner voice pressure that we don't talk about. The inner voice that we have, where we're like our worst critics, and
Yes.
so that takes a toll. Like that takes a toll on anyone's mind or emotions. And then it takes a toll on your physical health as well. And so I noticed that I had all kinds of premature autoimmune symptoms and anxiety and depression myself. And we're human, so we fluctuate. So depending on what we eat or how much we sleep or how we take care of ourselves, those emotions or those feelings and those symptoms can come back or linger. And it causes a lot of physical strife. And I didn't know or understand that, because it's like, okay, well, who do you talk to? What resources do we have that can help me understand what I'm going through? And that's why I'm really grateful that now we have more and more organizations, more therapists. It's becoming more normalized, more doctors, more holistic care that is talking about the effects of stress, our mental health, our emotional health on our physical health. So yes, it's
So what
been a
was
journey, and we're always healing
Yes.
and
Yes.
continually healing.
So what was the first step you took to? I mean, it sounds like you realized, all right, this isn't working for me. It's all kind of interconnected. What was the first step you took to kind
You
of
know what I
lead to this
realized?
journey?
The common theme for all of the stressful situations or stressful moments that were like extreme And so, for example, the 80-hour weeks, working in a stressful environment, or divorce or trauma or being sick. For me, it was acceptance first. I had to accept that, okay, this is happening. And I had to take a moment to listen to what my body needed. I learned to listen to my body. Sometimes I forget. And also I learned that in order for change to happen, I have to make the changes myself. They won't happen on their own in each scenario. Whether or not I wanted it to, or whether or not I was afraid of the consequences. For example, I took a sabbatical from work in hopes that I would go back and I can figure out how I can manage stress. It wasn't easy decision, because who just randomly decides to like stop working for a couple months to figure out how to help your health? But it was one of the best decisions I made, because I started doing research on my physical and mental health, and also being in relationships that really no longer serve your purpose. It is bringing you down, or it won't change. You have to be the change yourself in order to make life easier for yourself. It doesn't sound like it at the moment, because these decisions are not easy, and we're afraid to make these changes because we are afraid of the unknown. But if you want to make the change, you have to work through the fear, and you have to make the decision to improve your life. And how to improve your life, you may have to pull yourself out of situations that cause you that stress temporarily in order to see clearly, because sometimes we can't see clearly when we're just in the midst of it. I hope that answered your question, because sometimes I
That's perfect.
get really
No,
passionate about what I talk about, and
that
I could keep talking about it.
that's amazing. I think that is what this podcast is all about. You just nailed it. It's what is it that in the face of adversity and fear, you still moved forward? And I think that's what we're exploring. And some people do that, and I think we've shared that we've done that a lot, and it's scary, but it seems to always work out, and we've always find yourself living a more meaningful, fulfilled, joyful life. And on the brink of, I'm gonna quit work, and then how am I gonna pay my bills, and then what that's gonna make me even stressed even more. I can imagine that would be so challenging, but you realized, I need this, I need to do this. It's not working right now. If I just stay here, things are going to stay the same, so I need to make change for myself.
So
Right.
we talked about inner whispers on one of our episodes with Amalia, who was also at the retreat with us.
Yes.
And she was amazing. And she was talking about listening to those inner whispers. And we were talking about some of the big changes we've made. And because of those whispers and the universe whispering and then yelling and then dumping a piano on your head and all of these, and it's like, okay, I get it. I get it. So did you have any whispers like that, especially taking a sabbatical with work? That's a huge, huge step. Did you feel like you had those universal whispers or yelling or piano on your head, or did you just, how did you know to take that step?
It's okay. So I'm not just going to I'm going to use every scenario of scariness where I had to make a huge decision. Like work related, that was my career. That was my identity. That was what I spent my entire college and master's and driving force to get myself to get promoted and get great pay. And this was my identity. And I was like, I'm a rock star. I'm intelligent. I'm a career woman. So I could use that example, but I want to use every scenario where you kind of think you're comfortable because you work so hard at it. And to make a drastic decision is terrifying, whether it's making a career pivot versus, ending a relationship versus dealing with trauma versus being overwhelmed. All these situations have something in common where you feel stuck, which is where all of those emotions come in. You feel so stuck because you think this is the only decision. This is the only thing I can do. This is the only thing I know. And to answer your question, I think before I understood what meditation was, before I understood what stress releasing tools were. I think naturally, as humans, we're drawn to create. We are drawn to create something. So between praying, because I prayed a lot, whether you have a religious background or you have a spiritual connection, I prayed a lot. And I was like, I need the truth. I need clarity. I feel like I'm not clear. But at the same time, I was drawn to create. And that was my happy moment. And the more I created, the more I felt clarity. So between praying and that was my, at the time, meditation, because I would sit in quiet and be able to kind of carve out time to not do anything and just focus on praying. And then there were times where I'm like, okay, well, I can't think, so let me write. So naturally, I started writing. I didn't really like journaling at the time, but I wrote poetry, I wrote songs. And looking back, I realized that was my natural way of coping and releasing stress, but I didn't realize that that's what I was doing. But still, you still have fear. I wasn't really aware that I needed to make a change. I thought the change would happen. Okay, I'm praying and I'm working hard and change will come. When it got to the point where I was suppressing a lot of feelings to the point where I wasn't feeling much anymore, a light bulb clicked in my head and I was like, something is wrong. If I feel numb, something is wrong. This isn't normal. And that's when the light bulb happened. And I was like, I need to make the change. I need to be the change. Because all this time I waited or I asked for the changes to happen and it wasn't happening. I had to be the change. I had to be the change if I wanted to feel again and not feel numb. I hope that answered your
Yes.
question. I think it just happened that I was actually more scared of not feeling than I was of making the change. That's when it happened for every scenario.
Yeah,
Be
that
the
makes
be the
sense.
change you want to see in the world.
Yeah, and in your life, yeah, you have to take some action to. We
I-
can ask for signs and guidance and all of that, and that's helpful, and we can pray, right? But you actually have to take a step forward and
Right.
take
Right.
action.
I really was. I really thought that if I was patient enough, the changes would come
Yeah.
because I'm an incredibly patient person. As my kids will tell you, I am. And it takes a lot of patience, honestly, to be an entrepreneur and to work with children. And I'm a patient person. So I really thought that if I try to do the work, you look for the solutions when you're within the situation and thinking that, okay, well, I did do a little changes here and there, but no, when I think for me, it was more terrifying not to feel and not to be the person that I just didn't recognize myself. I didn't know who I was really.
I can definitely relate to that. Your work and your income define who you are. And I've struggled with that a lot, and didn't come from a lot. And so was my determined to like get the status and the job title and the big house and things like that. And then after that breaks down and not have a lot of purpose or meaning, then it's like, okay, what's left? And so you got to
Right.
have that inner, what fills your cup. And I think, like you were saying, I think we're a lot taught, like if you put good energy into the world, it will come back to you. And I'm a good person and I'm working hard and I'm providing for my kids. And why do I feel this way? And so, yeah, I love that. For me, being stuck in a job that I know, okay, this is how it's going to go. That to me is scarier than continuing to grow and learn and explore and be challenged and find new things. I have a very strong internal struggle with sameness, and like I don't know how people work at the same job for 30 years. That to me
Yeah.
feels very sad.
I was
It's
going to
very
add,
safe. It's very
yes,
safe.
safe.
That's
And
it.
and there's a percentage of us that would love to feel safe. Like if it's not really like bothering you and you can live your life very quiet and simple, then it works.
Yeah, but if you feel stuck or you feel that itch or that inclination that there's something more, and I think I really relate to your story of just kind of waiting and doing the things, like you said, praying and patience and waiting for the things. I think I felt that way when we moved here from California to Virginia. It was like I was getting up, I was doing my morning routine, I was getting on my yoga mat, I was sitting there, but I was feeling so stuck and I was feeling so uninspired, and I had to make a change even in that, in my approach to that, to doing something different. But you mentioned creating, and that really resonates with me because I had to start creating stuff. And it started with doing my Act Matrix facilitator training and then creating crowdcasts around that. And it was so scary and it was so out of my element. I mean, doing this podcast is so like out of my element. I don't know how we ended up here, but it was that because of that, taking those steps to create something and do something completely outside of the box, which led to creating other things and doing other things and saying yes to other things. And then the world kind of opened up in this new way that it's really exciting and scary and all the things. But I think that creation part and really speaks to what can move you out of the stuckness and the anxiety and the stress and all the things.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I I may have I may have mentioned in the past a story during some of my hardest times. And I want to share the story because I hope that if anyone listens to this, they find an outlet, because there's some people exercise and it helps. It's an outlet for their emotions or for all the stress. But for me, and I didn't realize this, it was that I was putting more stress on my body for some reason and creating more cortisol, and it wasn't helping me release the type of stress I needed to release. But I started writing. I love writing songs, and I learned how to do this since I was 11. I felt like nobody got me, nobody understood me. I was the kid that was just like, like happy go lucky, and nobody got that. And I liked to sing all the time. And I probably was annoying too, but I was just like, I just never felt like I fit in. I felt like I was different. So I just started writing. I started writing songs, and it felt freeing. No judgment. It was just for me, not for me to perform, not for me to share with anyone. It was just for me to entertain myself. Because back then we didn't have all this technology that provides entertainment. We had free channels. My parents didn't want to have cable, so we just had to create our own entertainment. And since then, a few years ago, during my hardest times, I picked up a pen, and my sister was like, just listen to music and write. Since you can't create music yourself right now, listen to music and write your songs to the music. And I was like, okay, I'll do that. So it would be like my youngest kid. I love him. He would never go to sleep, never. So I just kind of plopped him down. And in some of the recordings, you'll probably hear them saying, Mommy, what are you doing? Mommy, what are you doing? But I would just write. I would just write. And then I would put the words to the music, and I would sing into my laptop. There was no professional equipment, nothing. I said, I'm just going to do this. Why? I'll just do this. I will tell you, I wrote probably and sang about like 40, 50 songs, whether they made sense, didn't make sense, they were silly, they were, from a place of pain. But it was the most freeing, liberating thing that I had ever done. And it was almost like I was freeing my voice, because I felt like my voice was so stifled for so many years, and opening up my throat chakra. And I share that because I had no idea that I was capable of doing that. And I had no idea that that was an option to help me release a lot of the trapped emotions that I was feeling, because I didn't know what to do with these emotions, combination of sadness, grief, anger, a lot of emotions. But I will tell you that doing that really, really saved my mental health. And, plug that into part of my journey, I realized that a lot of people don't know these tools really do help if you just allow yourself to let go and try something, whether it's exercising, whether it's, cooking, whether it's meditating, whether it's doing art, whether it's poetry, whether it's storytelling, drumming, music. All of these things really, really tap into your emotions and mental health and can really raise your vibration. And when you raise your vibration, you have a lesser chance of feeling stuck or feeling that sadness or depression or anxiety that we so often feel when we're in a constant cycle of stress.
Love that. Thanks for sharing that. You babysat in high school and were involved in other kids groups and supporting kids. And how did you make that connection? All right, this is my purpose, and starting your company and providing these tools to help kids. What was that journey like for you, and obstacles you had to overcome and challenges you faced, and how did you do?
I think that the journey working with kids started when my parents had my younger sibling, they're twins. I was 13, and they were the first twins born in Reston Hospital. I just have
Wow.
to throw that shout out, all
So
right?
cool.
It was really cool. Their picture was in the paper,
Wow.
and I I felt like I guess you would have to ask them, my siblings, but I felt like I learned how to be more of a nurturer when they were born. It brought out the natural nurturing part of me. And in high school, it used to be a childcare class. And my siblings were able to be part of that program. And so I got to be their teacher in my high school and we had to make lesson plans, and they don't have that program anymore, which I'm really sad because it took 2 years of it. And it was really, I was like, I love kids and I love working with kids. And I wanted to be a pediatrician, actually. That was my dream. I wanted to go to medical school. I wanted to be a pediatrician because I wanted to help children even at that age in high school. Life changes, like your direction changes based on circumstances. I ended up I ended up switching my major and finishing an engineering degree, which kind of was a huge pivot from being a pediatrician in medical school. But that never changed my love for working with children, even through college and high school. And I had a million cousins, and I was one of the older ones. And so when we get together, I was the one always creating entertainment because we didn't have phones and internet back then. And so I hosted birthday parties for my siblings. It just kind of all added up. I was always the go-to. Oh, Sheila's creative. Sheila knows what she could do, and I would make all these like games. We'd play games, and I had so much energy. I was blessed with 4 children of my own. I didn't know I was going to have 4 kids. I'm just kidding. I was blessed with 4 kids, and I didn't realize how hard it was to be a mom. It's really hard to be a mom.
It is.
And try to be a good mom and try to do the right things. And you have to think about so many things, so much planning. And then you realize they're different personalities. Each child has a different personality, a different need. Mm. And all of that, and helping my children also cope with the different mental and emotional stresses that they had to go through, it really led me to understand how much I enjoy working with children. I enjoy the nurturing and growth. I enjoy teaching every opportunity I've had. Even in my career, I would create SOPs and then I would train. I was a trainer, or I would get up and teach groups how to use certain applications or softwares. I like to learn, and then I like to share the knowledge. So if it works for me, I want to be able to share that with you. And a lot of the methods that I use in TASGEM, a lot of the curriculum were things that I tested and created and experimented on my own children. It sounds bad when I say experiment. It was with love. I would have, they're different age groups, and I wanted to get their feedback. What do you like? What don't you like? How do you feel after this? And I am very, very proud to say, my daughter going through her teenage years, it was right in the middle of the pandemic. And so obviously she needed a little mental and emotional health support. And I put her through the program, the curriculum, and she became very strong and confident, which is one thing I'm noticing with this program. I'm noticing how many children are becoming more and more confident. They're becoming curious. They're really embracing their creativity, which I noticed was kind of, I feel like creativity is a dying like breed because
Yes.
of so much information at your fingertips. Sometimes you don't have the need to become creative or be creative because it's done for you. But needless to say, we always need people to be creative. And then, of course, having the science background, I was like, we need to put science and art together. They work together. You can't be creative without, you have to be creative to be a good scientist. You have to figure out how things work. And with that, my daughter confidently became a fabulous instructor. She went through the program, she became a mentor, and then she started teaching the workshops.
Oh, I love
And
that.
now my son is a mentor. He's a teenager, and the kids love it. Kids gravitate towards the teens, and I'm always looking for teens who want to work with kids. If they want to be a mentor or volunteer, I'm always open to inviting them to my programs to work with the children. So yeah, it's been, like I said, there's no lot of things fed into this program.
I love the way you explained it, of how it's not one linear journey that got you there, that it's so many different layers and paths and things that have brought you to where you are. And I think that's beautiful. And it helps me to conceptualize my own journey as well. So when you said that and when we talked before, it really helped put it into perspective for me. So that's awesome. So tell us more about what you offer at TASGEM.
So originally, when I started TASGEM, it was just therapeutic arts, and it was for adults like me, adults struggling, trying to find work-life balance, trying to figure out how to manage stress. The first workshop we did for adults was at the Cat Cafe, January of 2020, right before the pandemic. And I continually did little spotted classes because I was like, okay, people really are gravitating towards this. It was actually, when I did it, it was an experiment. See, that's the scientist in me. I like to experiment and try things to see what works and what doesn't work. And that January 2020 workshop was actually to see if this was something that people would want. And then throughout the pandemic, I had a few workshops. I tried to do a couple of virtual ones, and they were for adults. And I received feedback to create curriculum for kids. And I was like, you know what? That's not a bad idea. My kids enjoy this. Why not create curriculum for children? And I did a couple of like spring, like camps, and got great feedback. And then it just kept evolving. It kept evolving. And by October of 2022, that's when I was like, man, it's getting popular. Let's, LLC it. So TASGEM actually is the acronym that my children created, because they're like, Mom, this is such a long word. How do you spell therapeutic? My 8-year-old at the time, he was trying to write it on the board for our camp. And I helped him spell it out on the board. And then he underlined all the words, and he's like, you know what? Can we just call it TASGEM? It's easier. And I was like, okay, there it is. That's it. We're going to call it TASGEM. People won't know what it is. So I got to tell them it's therapeutic art, science, and growth mindset. So yeah, in 2022, we became an LLC, and I added more science to it so that we can be inclusive of STEM, because I love STEM and I love to encourage kids to, even adults. I mean, you could be 40 and still want to make a science kit. Why not? Why not?
Yes. Yeah, I just was talking with our kids this morning about doing science experiments, and I'm excited about it myself, to go out and get the supplies and test out these theories that they have. And yeah, it's fun, and it gets your brain moving in a different direction and gets those neurons firing, and we're making new connections, and it's helpful to balance out our lives with that.
And there's no right or wrong answer in art. I like to explore that, and in science, so you're testing things out and
Right.
you see what's going to happen. You observe, and You create that explorer in you.
And then when you add the growth mindset, then you're not having a fixed mindset. You're having a growth mindset and just seeing what happens. There's no mistakes. Like you said, no right or wrong. I love that. I love the title because it says everything that I just love
Yes.
it. Yes.
Yeah, well, the growth mindset is built in because I can't tell you how many times and how many workshops I've heard, well, I'm not an artist. I'm not a scientist. And I'm like, okay, well, what's the definition of a scientist? So we just go through the steps and be like, well, why not? Why can't we all be a scientist? I mean, you can go and get a degree and be called a scientist, but why can't we all have an inner scientist in us or an inner artist? We focus too much on perfection.
Mhm.
Too much. Too
Yes.
much. And it's not that I'm trying to get the participants in my workshop to relearn or rewire their thoughts. Well, actually, I am. I'm trying to get them to think more positively about themselves because we are our own worst critics. It's us. We're doing it to ourselves. The kids or the adults just said, I'm not an artist. I'm not a scientist. Well, let's change that. Let's go through this curriculum and then let me hear your thoughts. And I tell them there is perfection and imperfection.
Yeah, we definitely are our worst inner critics. And if we can release some of that or even just acknowledge what's coming up, accept it, but then put our energy into something that can shift away.
Are you familiar with Carol Dweck and her work and her research on growth mindset? I think she was the first where I was like, wow, this really makes a lot of sense. She has a lot of cool videos that share and the research behind it, but it's really where all you don't know something till you know something. And so it feels like you have embraced your fail forward. Let's try it. And if it doesn't work, then we make a shift and you keep moving forward and you keep growing and you keep learning. And you're hearing so much more about that these days with these CEOs and these companies that have failed, and then they finally succeed. And we just see people succeeding and wow, that was easy for them. I could never do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Go ahead.
You don't hear about all their failures until they become very successful and they tell their story. And it's like, yeah, really. And unfortunately, I see kids. They think that it has to be done perfect the first time. That their mindset is set on, okay, I didn't do it well the first time. I'm not good enough. And with TASGEM, I'm also trying to instill in their mindset or for them to value themselves. Some of the curriculum is mindfulness, the self-love, loving on themselves, the gratitude, the self-care, caring about themselves, the compassion. Be proud of who you are. You are enough. And it stems from that first before not being able to do an activity and saying, see, I can't do it. So it's really trying to plant the seeds of believing in yourself and the confidence, because we can be our worst advocate with that inner voice, but we can also be our best advocate. And oftentimes we have to love ourselves first. And that's very hard to do. We can keep saying we love ourselves, but there are moments where if you could record some of the lines in your head of how you talk to yourself, you're like, wait a minute. I need to reevaluate how I talk to myself in my mind.
Yes. And I think that's just so important for kids. Like we said earlier, I wish I had that guidance and approach to learn from growing up. And I think, but it's so important for all of us. But kids these days, and we talk about authenticity and showing up as your authentic self, there's so much pressure to fit into these molds and with social media and all of that. But it's the self-love and the compassion and that mindfulness I know is so important. There's one little story that sticks with me from teaching the yoga and mindfulness groups at the elementary, where I went around the first day and just asked them, let's share something you're grateful for about yourself or something you love about yourself. Only 2 out of the 10 kids could share something that they liked about themselves. The other ones just said, I don't know. I don't have anything. And that was so devastating to me that they couldn't even say anything. I was like, just come up with anything you just like about yourself or something you're grateful for about yourself. Nothing. And then by the end of the 6 weeks, they were all able to share, thankfully,
I love
something.
that. I
Yeah,
love
and
that.
so it just hearing about your classes is so
Oh,
inspiring that there's so many kids and teens and adults out there that are developing those skills because we all need it so much. But for the kids to not be able to say something they love about themselves is just devastating. It's heartbreaking. So I'm just so happy you're doing this work.
And a lot of
thank
times they're
you. Happy
so
you're
much
doing your work too.
and we're just
Thank you.
overcorrecting them and prompting them and consequences, and it's almost like we're training them to not make an attempt or not go above their comfort zone for fear that they're going to be scolded, or there's so much pressure to perform, and especially in our county, even getting into college, and you have to have the best grades and do all these things, and the pressure on the teens, it's just it's incredible.
I heard something about our county and that I don't know if this is true, but in some of the high schools that the kids don't know. The main thing that they knew was that they knew their percentage rank in their class. They didn't know
Wow.
anything else about what they were
Mm.
learning or anything. That was like the one thing that they focused on was their percentage rank in their class. And I was like, what? I had no idea.
Yeah.
I was focused on other things in high school, but that's a good thing and a really bad thing to like put yourself in this percentage rank instead of like the growth and the enjoyment of learning.
Yeah.
It's just I just fit into this number ranking. I don't know if
We're
that's
on
true, but
we're all on our
Wow.
own paths, and have strengths and challenges, every single one of us, and when you compare, what does it say, comparison is the fastest way to
like the thief of joy
thief of
or
joy. Yeah, yeah.
I don't know if that.
Oh, we do that as kids. We do that as adults. I think it's a lot more challenging for teens because they're going through changes, and now the comparison is no longer your peers, but you have so much information at your fingertips and videos and movies that portray a certain, I guess, a certain way a person should be or should look, and it's really, you're right, the whole comparison is a thief of joy. It really starts to pull the confidence away from their minds and hearts.
How long are your workshops, and what do you see kids enter, and or adults, and how do they leave? What's your objective? You share is building confidence, but what have you have seen during your
So
experience?
so we usually have single day workshops, and more effective ones are the 5-week workshops. I have one starting next week online. Shameful plug right there. It's 5 weeks between, depending on the group or location, because I'm mobile, but I have a location in Herndon where I also hold workshops. It could be between an hour to an hour and a half or 2 hours each workshop. And each one of them has some sort of meditation that segues into a curriculum. And for the children, for the after school programs, we have a creation station where they have the freedom. So there's no curriculum or direction. They just kind of get to create freely without any interruption. The curriculum is a little structured for focus, but very free flowing. So it's not like it has to look like this. It has to be like this. It's like, here are the tools. Here's how, here's an example of how it's done. Here's what we want the results to look like. And let's have fun while we're doing it. For adults, the meditation is a lot longer and deeper. It's more of a guided meditation. And most of the workshops, I do some energy work. I have energy medicine background, and I do some energy work with the adults, not so much with the kids. With the kids, the meditation can vary because they've had long days, or some of them don't want to sit still. So we add movement meditation or some other like talk meditation, all kinds of different things to get them to basically be in the present moment or release energy. So sometimes they can have a lot of energy and they just don't want to even listen to instructions. And it's like, all right, let's get up, let's do movement meditation. And half the time they're being silly or having fun doing it. And that's the joy of being a child. And so you ask for results. I've noticed an increase in confidence. That is so important. The confidence, they speak out more. they're willing to get up and present their projects or what they've created versus on the first day, a lot of them don't want to say anything or they don't want to raise their hand. They don't want to contribute any answers to any questions that we ask because we do reviews too. Like, okay, last week we did self-care. What does self-care mean to you? So we reiterate certain topics and a lot of positive reinforcement, a lot of affirmations, and to see their confidence level grow is one of the most important things that is my takeaway from the results of the program.
Yeah, we all need that.
We see that in sports. I've learned that a lot in sports or different things like that. But there's different avenues for everybody, and not everybody's into sports.
I was going to say, I'm glad you mentioned that. That's another thing I enjoy about TASGEM is that there are those that don't enjoy sports. There are those that don't want to do extra math and science or the after school programs. There are not a lot of students that want to be in STEM. There are just kids that really want to be. They don't want to graduate to another level to be able to move on. Because with the curriculum, even if they miss a day, it's not contingent upon each other. They're all like separate. You don't need to finish one to be able to move on to the next one. You don't need to take a test. You don't need to prove anything. You just get to be. And some kids just want to be. They don't want to do any of the other things. And that is very important for their growth and for their confidence to be able to move on and find the things that they enjoy doing, right?
And in sports, you're competing against other people. And so it's a constant competition, and that can be very stressful for sure.
Yeah.
Definitely. I know we have to wrap up, but is there something a takeaway that you would share with people? We want them to take your workshops, of course, and we'll give you a chance to share where they can find you. Is there a takeaway just for today that if they did one thing to be more in line with what you do in your workshops, one thing to bring themselves more joy, one thing to bring about more mindfulness, do you have a tip or a piece of advice for people?
Just sing it out.
Yeah.
Let it out. I'm always singing. I'm with you. My kids will be like, "Stop singing, Dad." I make everything a song. It's so funny. Music is that for me too.
Once upon a time there. No, I'm just kidding.
We're doing a podcast.
I was singing
Oh, don't get me
doing a
podcast with Sheila. It's gonna be amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll save that for the next podcast. But
Sing along.
oh gosh, I have so many takeaways. But the one thing I encourage and invite listeners to do is to please, if you can, carve out 5 or 10 minutes a day for yourself. Just 5 minutes. And this is what I often preach and I practice sometimes too, to take 5 minutes out of your day, whether it's first thing in the morning or right before you go to bed. If you can contribute more, that's more time, that's better. But oftentimes we wake up and we're just on the go until we come home and then it's bedtime, right? To take that 5 to 10 minutes to either focus on your breathing, take a walk, meditate, or write. Anything to just kind of allow things to pass through. I guarantee if every day for 30 days someone does any of those things, they will be able to handle stress so much better than they did before. And I wanted to share that because that's one of the practices. If we practice, because everything is a practice. You don't become the best cook in one day. You have to practice cooking. You don't become a marathon runner in one day. You have to keep practicing and working out. If you are trying to become a healthy eater, it doesn't happen in one day. So your mental health starts with just 5 minutes and just gradually add on time to breathe, time to walk, time to be present, or write down all of those thoughts that are just jarbling in your head. And I And I encourage everyone to be able to do that. I encourage you two to go do that right after this
Yes.
podcast.
Yes, I love it.
Sheila, you got a great energy. I can just feel it coming through the screen. Some people,
Thank you.
I don't know if I have a higher awareness, but I can feel it from you. And I think you have a great career in podcast ahead of you. I think your communication and how you express is really connecting with people for sure. You're great as a guest. It's been very
Thank
easy
you.
to talk with you. Sometimes we have a list of questions, and we didn't even need questions with you. I think it's just a very natural conversation, and I think
Well, thank you. I hope I didn't talk
Yeah.
too much.
No,
I mean, I
wanna
did
keep
get-
talking.
Yes.
I did get detention a lot in 3rd grade because I like to talk.
That's funny.
Tell people where they can find you, social media or website, and how they can connect with you and explore your workshop options.
Absolutely. Please join me. Well, you can go to my website, www.tasgem.com. I can be reached. My email address is admin@tasgem.com. I am located in Herndon, my office. I'm in and out because I'm mobile, but you're welcome to schedule time to come see me or look on my website for the workshops. It's my address. You want my address too? I can give you my address.
They can find it on the website, but what's
I'm in Herndon, Virginia. Yeah, definitely.
media?
If you're into social media, yes. Instagram is at Therapeutic Art Mindset. We have Facebook page, Therapeutic Arts, Science, and Growth Mindset. In the process of LinkedIn, that's kind of like on the back burner right now, but yeah, you could probably find me on LinkedIn, Sheila Anwari. What else? I have an inactive YouTube channel, but you guys are encouraging me to get back on the YouTube channel too. I'd like to offer more like takeaways like the one I gave you guys. So I'll probably end up putting that on the website as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you. This has
Thank
been
you so much.
great. You're amazing to talk to, and we're excited to follow your journey and see where it takes you.
Yes.
Thank you so much. I
right.
appreciate both of you. I appreciate your time. And if your listeners would like me to come back, I'd love to talk about multiple subjects. We could have a
Yes.
couple more sessions,
I
time
see
permitting,
that
right?
happening. Yes,
Yes.
that should definitely happen. So we'll keep in touch and we'll figure that out.
Thank you so much. I
right, thank
appreciate
you,
you guys.
Sheila.
All right.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Sheila. We'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
All right. Bye-bye. Bye.